Hello, everybody. We are here today, the last caller of this afternoon of the All About Woo Summit. We do have a couple more coming up tomorrow. And my beautiful guest is Madeleine Sklar, a beautiful soul. I actually met her back, gosh, I guess it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. Although we haven't been in touch, she's come back around full circle through a mutual friend, a guest speaker who spoke with us yesterday, Kiera Alani. Madeleine, I met her back in California in Santa Cruz, and we had a beautiful experience together, got to share some space and really recognize the vibes and the vibrancy of what living our life on our terms really is all about. I want to tell you a little bit more about her because she's had some really unique experiences that she'd like to share with you, and it's the basis of some of her talk as well. So Madeleine is the Reverend MS, Madeleine Sklar Reverend. I'm not sure what the MS stands for.
It's my master's degree, which
Okay,
actually
thank
I
you. Yeah,
in there.
yes,
It's
thank
weird
you.
because it's my initials, but it's a
Exactly, eh?
master.
She is a water priestess, transformational life recreation expert, and best-selling author with over 63 years of experience teaching, writing, and offering transformative readings. Madeleine has the gift of bringing forth the incredible potential that lies within every person she connects with. Her expertise is rooted in interdisciplinary studies, combining anthropology, psychology, sociology, and a special focus on women's issues. This unique blend of knowledge allows her to approach transformation from a holistic perspective, recognizing the intricate web of connections that exist between our inner and outer worlds. As a creative entrepreneur, she takes a stand for all to claim freedom to pursue their passions. She's devoted to writing, painting, sculpting, and playing the healing harp and making a positive impact on countless lives. She is here today to talk about healing the mother-daughter wound. And I just want to clarify as you go into this a little bit more deeply, mother-daughter, could that also be feminine, masculine, or father-son, or any of the interpretations as well? And I'm going to give you the floor from
I
there.
think I think it's different between a father and a son. The dynamic is very different. I think it does have some relevance to a mother-son relationship or son-mother relationship, but at the time I did my thesis, and one reason I put MS is because to be a master's thesis, you need 50 pages. I ended up writing close to 500. And I was told it was a doctoral length master's thesis, which is what happened. And it does have some relevance to men because what I was looking at was when I first started working on my thesis, or actually I didn't work, well, it was before I was working on my thesis. I went back to school to get my master's, and I was in a women's studies class, and they passed out a lot of books that they were reading, and at the end of that particular class, they asked if we had seen any hole in the research about the mother-daughter relationship that needed filling or pursuing in a deeper way. And what I found was in the books that I was reading, they were talking about how if a woman was successful, it was because of the influence of her father and the non-interference of her mother. And I thought this does not make this is this is wrong. It feels wrong in terms of just my own personal experience and my observation. And when you look at the Black movie awards, the Black Academy Awards, they're all thanking their moms, not their dads. A lot of them are. And so just observing life, I felt that hypothesis was wrong. And then I was going to get my degree in psychology. And I went in to speak to the head of that department, and I looked behind his head, and there was psychology's family tree, and it was all men. And one woman, which was Anna Freud, and she might as well be a clone of her dad. And so I thought, well, this is not my family tree. And so I decided to question what what the mother's role was and how it was perceived. And I realized that the whole field was very androcentric and Western and patriarchal, basically. And so it was not looking at what a woman's role is, or the maternal role, or the man's role was in other cultures. It was all coming from basically European culture and American culture, which is in the same line. And so that's when I started looking into the anthropology, and I discovered that the whole idea of gender was very different. I mean, I came across one culture where gender is not seen as connected to your genitals, but is connected to where you take in your nourishment. And that it was thought that initially everybody's born female because they're being nourished by their mother and they're breastfeeding and all of that. And then when it gets time for puberty, the males are taken, or the males to be, are taken into the men's tent and fed on blood and sperm, male emissions for 2 weeks. And then they emerge as men because they've been literally fed by the men. And that once a woman stops menstruating, she becomes gendered as male because she's given away all of her femaleness. And her husband, who she's been feeding it to, is then gendered as female. And it's pretty wild. But I felt like that was a worthwhile perspective to realize how narrow our Western perspective can be about what people are and what the influence is. And from there, I got into looking at what was considered to be a good mother. And all of this really had grown out of the fact that I had a terrible, really, I had, well, it wasn't terrible, but I had a very, very unhappy relationship with my mother. I was made to feel like I was adopted and then made to feel like had I been a toaster, she would have returned me for a better version if she could have. And and so I had been looking at myself as a very flawed product. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, I was so thrilled to be pregnant and and I wanted this daughter more than anything. And I wasn't even married to my husband at the time. I just was, he said, I don't know if I want to be here. And I said, well, you go do what you need to do. I'm having this child and we will live a good life. And he decided to stay. But while I was pregnant then, I was outside once and I just suddenly got this panic and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to raise a child when I'm so fucked up? And I suddenly thought, well, what if I had a child that turned out exactly like me? And I started taking off what exactly like me would be. And I thought, well, I'm not a murderer. I'm not a rapist. I'm not Richard Nixon, who happened to be president at the time. And, you know, if you voted for him, this isn't a judgment on your politics. It was what I believe. And I'm not, you know, I know how to love people. I know how to love life. I'm artistic and creative. If I had a daughter that turned out just like me, I would be very proud of her. And it was the first time I saw myself as what if I was my own child. And that was the beginning of a really deep healing, is to actually separate yourself from what you, and this would be good for males too, is to separate yourself from looking at yourself as a product, but as, what if you produce this very thing, this very being? And I then thought about my mother, and I thought, well, she came from a lot of very, very painful experiences. She had come across the ocean as an immigrant in steerage with nothing. She was escaping being murdered in Lithuania, where they were killing all the Jews during the pogroms, and as had my father, come from Kiev, escaping just with like part of their family and their own lives. And that they had then created really good lives for themselves. And yet she was deeply injured. And I thought, what if she could have really become the person that she wanted to be? Because I realized that some of the issues I had with her was that when she came to this country, the only thing back in the 30s and 40s, and because I was born in 1942. So actually, when she came in, and when she was like, she came over in the, around 1917 or 16, someplace in there, a value in this country that a woman had was to have a baby. And since she couldn't have her own baby, I was a reminder of her failure as a woman. And that, I think, tainted our relationship deeply. And I felt like, what if she could have been the woman that she really might have been, had she had the kind of support and nurturance that would have supported who she really was in her spirit? Because she was a brilliant, I mean, genius kind of woman, but had very little place for her in America at that time, as the genius that she really was. And so that got me into really creating a workshop for women, and it was for women. And one of the processes was to go back and start envisioning all the way back, you know, what would my mother have been? Had she been able to be fully herself? What would her mother have been had she been able to be fully herself? And it went all the way back to the pre-patriarchal times, where the feminine was in balance with the masculine, before a kind of androcentric patriarchy took over the culture. And one of the other things that I ended up going through at this in this exploration was, because I'd been adopted, all I was told about where I came from, about my roots, was that they were Jewish. Because in those days, if you were Christian, you had to be adopted by a Christian family. If you were Catholic, it had to be a Catholic family. If you were Jewish, it had to be a Jewish family. If you were Chinese, it had to be a Chinese family, and on and on. They did not have any cross adopting that we now have so freely at this time in history. And so knowing that made me feel like whatever way that Judaism was being practiced when I was young, and it had gotten pretty patriarchal at that time, it was all I had to cling to of my past. Now, when I was 20, I started reading Tarot. I learned to read it. There were only two Tarot decks that existed in New York City or California, San Francisco at that time. And they were the Rider-Waite and the Marseille deck. And both of those, it happened when I learned to read Tarot, that both those decks mixed an Arabic number system, Hebrew letters, and Christian pagan, mishmash of symbology. Now, what I found, I thought, oh, the Hebrew letters, well, that's something I'm curious about. But I found that the Hebrew letters are numbers, and it's a totally different numeric system than the Arabic number system, which works great for science and commerce in the world today. That's the number system that we all use. The Hebrew number system did not have a zero because everything was contained within the oneness of God, of the Holy One. Everything is referred to as the Holy One. And the Holy One is always being and becoming itself, their self. And so the number system went from 1 to 10, and then from tens to hundreds, and then from hundreds, the way Roman numerals do, because Rome again came later and was influenced by that language. And what I've also learned is that Hebrew and Sanskrit are the two oldest still written languages in the world today. They're the two oldest still in use written languages in the world today. And so I got curious about the meanings of the letters. And I started to study that, and it led me down this really interesting rabbit hole, which kind of dovetailed with what I'd been learning about culture and women's role, because what I learned was women created the alphabet. It came out of the ancient goddess cultures, and that the Hebrew alphabet, which is what the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet are, Aleph and Bet, and the Hebrew alphabet is referred to as Aleph Bet. And of course, that became the word alphabet as we now have. But the thing about the Aleph Bet is it was birthed in the ancient Canaanite cultures of the Middle East, and they were goddess worshiping cultures, and they saw the alphabet as having been created by three mothers. And they saw all of creation as having come from these three mothers. There was the air or infinite mother, which is like the holy oneness. The water mother, which was seen as the mother of all created existence. And the fire mother, that was the mother of transformation. And that was represented by a serpent's tooth. And that it was those three mothers that actually created Mother Earth. And so there is no one letter in the alphabet that represents Mother Earth, but the three mother letters are what they credit the alphabet and all creation as having come from. And so then I ended up writing this book. and creating a whole way of going into the deeper meaning of those letters, because I felt that when we learn how connecting to our ancient mother's alphabet can help us connect more deeply to our roots and reclaim our identity, our real identity as women, and begin to see our essential self reflected in our present life, and how we are both living, because time is not linear, it's also simultaneous. We are all within us, like body, mind, and spirit. We're also living as our ancient wise woman self, our present of who we see ourselves and what we project in the world at this time, and as our future self. And we are both living all those simultaneously and evolving those. And so that's kind of where I've come from with that. And if you want, I don't know if I have time to do a little visualization
Oh,
with
yes, you have
people.
time. You have time, my friend.
Okay, so this is just something that I did when I created a workshop around healing the mother-daughter wound as also part of the thesis. And I'll say one other thing about that is I realized in I started interviewing women who felt successful in their lives, not necessarily successful in the Western ideal of success, which I think is very based around money, but successful in terms of how they felt about themselves um, in their own life, whether they were whether they were a stay-at-home mother or whether they were the head of a corporation. It wasn't what they were doing in the world, it was how they felt about it within their own and personal ambitions. And so I interviewed these women, and one of the very amazing things I discovered was that one of the women that I interviewed had a mother who was German and a father that was Native American. And this woman was talking about how her mother, how her father, being raised as Native American when was raised, had a lot of kind of self-hate around his background, because it was a lot of men who were raised as Native Americans in this country were made to feel kind of shamed about their connection to that tradition. I think that now that has shifted since the 70s, but back when she was born, that wasn't the case. And so, but her mother, who was German, thought her father was amazing and loved the Native American traditions that he was still practicing, although kind of hiding it a bit in his regular life. And so she, as an adult, she was getting her master's and doctorate in Native American studies and in education, so she could go back into the reservations and work with her people. And she had all this deep connection to the Native American value. And I realized in hearing from her talk about him and where her influence was, that a lot of the influence of the mother can even be what the mother has highlighted as this is a wonderful thing that your dad is or has. My mother, um, for instance, highlighted for me what an amazingly ethical man my father was, how wise and ethical he was. And I was a kid. What do you know, like a little kid what kids think about the how ethical their dad is. But when my mom highlighted that for me, I thought, well, I'm going to be like my dad, but I didn't realize it was because my mother had put the camera on that amazing trait in my father. And, I mean, he was a man who was offered millions of dollars to be the lawyer for Rockefeller and turned down the money because he said Rockefeller wasn't an ethical person. So, I mean, this is the level that my father functioned at. And so anyway, to go back to that, I really wanted to um, create a workshop to help women recognize and reclaim some of their essential herstory, and that's why I wanted to do this visualization. So what I want you to do now is just allow yourself to take some deep breaths. And as you breathe, just allow yourself to breathe in. As Sandra said, first take a breath, like really let yourself breathe as who you are in this moment, at this time, in this place. Feel your body, whether you're sitting or lying, feel how it is solid on the seat or on the bed. Feel the life in you, feel the life moving like water through your whole body. From your feet, just feel it. This is like we are mostly water, and just feel yourself as that living fluid essence and breathe into that. And this is the same living fluid essence of being that your mother had in her and you were in her, as the seed of who you were in her womb. And so let yourself feel that essence of her and feel yourself held in this space of shared water, of shared beingness with your mother. And then go back further and think about that she was the essence of her, the egg that she came from was in your grandmother, and just feel how that might be. And then realize that the grandmother was in her mother and her grandmother. And just let yourself really breathe into that. And then let yourself really be aware of what their longings for themselves might have been. What did your mother long for? who would she have been had she not been damaged in whatever way she was damaged? And we all are. We all are damaged by life. That's part of what helps us grow. And then think about who she might have been had she not had that suffering. Let yourself really picture that. And then picture how her mother might have treated her and been, who might her mother have been had she felt free to be fully herself. And then go back further to her mother and think, let yourself really see the way these women who might she have been? Would she have been a Viking? Would she have been a witch, a wise woman? Would she have been a healer? Would she have been a dancer or a musician? Would she have been a lover in some different way than the way she was forced to be? Think about her and then go back further and just imagine the lives of her mother and her mother all the way back. And try to imagine, had they been healed all the way back to the time when there was balance, when they as women were honored, were respected, had equal power and equal were seen as one of the two pillars that hold up the world. Were seen as helpmates against the male to support the way two sides of an arch, if they don't need a keystone, support the arch so it can stand and be strong. There was a time when women were seen in that way, and let yourself really go back to there and breathe into that. Breathe into the sense of your own power that you have, because all of this is in you. Whatever they were and whatever they could have been is part of who you are at this time. And then just let yourself feel that for a moment. And then picture yourself bringing it up through your body, through your chakras, from your base to your belly, to your womb, up to your solar plexus, to your heart. And allow these to expand as this memory and these women come up through you, that you're healing them as you're healing yourself. And then bring them all the way up and connect them through you to spirit, to the holy oneness that we all can connect with. And then when you're ready, take a few moments, I'd say like a minute or two, and just write or draw something that allows you to express what you have experienced. Because as an artist, as a creative person, as a poet and storyteller, I feel like this is the time to use where you've been, where you've seen, and allow it to come out in any way you need to. And take some time now in the silence to just do that. And when you're ready, just let me know. And if you want, maybe we'll be able to share what each other came up with, which is really lovely to hear. Okay, I'm seeing some hands come up. So I'm happy to unmute anyone that's ready to share and hear what anyone has to say.
Yeah. So what I could feel, the first thing I had was a takeaway that if I'd had a daughter like me, I would have gladly have me. And that really made me, I think that what exactly was what I longed for in my relationship with my mom, but it wasn't possible because she was hurt herself. So going through how she would have been like, how my grandmother would have been like, and they would have been who they really are, it made me so sad. It
Mhm.
really made me sad because, we've been treated like trash. And then the expectation who we should be. So in a sense, it makes sense why my mother directed her hate to me just because I was a woman too.
Mhm.
But it's not the truth. It's for me really, it came up what we lost, how much we lost. That we were in a place, despite feeling all the same, we were not able to connect. And really coming back to how it was before, it is really completely different. It's like what we lost, who we really are, being acknowledged, cherished, because in the end, men and women are worth the same. There is no one above the other. I always
Mhm.
felt that way, even though my father hasn't been in my life, because my parents divorced early, and I get why my mom wasn't able to live a relationship like that. And at the same time, I get in a way why I was in that family, because I carry something I had to sacrifice to claim it back. What my family doesn't have, they don't have that love.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I had to accept that I can't change them, that I can't heal them. And for my own health, I have to leave. But it's not that I hate them. It's just that I had to make the choice to choose myself.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's
sometimes
my,
if you cannot heal them in your personal relationship, because I couldn't with my mother either, you realize you can actually heal them in your own visualization, in your own prayer, that for healing through me, when in the morning I drink my water and I say, may I, through me, may this holy sacred water bring healing to all my ancestors and our relations and descendants. And when you drink the water or whatever else that you do, you can recognize that you are able, through you, because of the oneness with that I think Alan talks about, that we all are. If you're healing it in you and you're praying for this healing for your ancestors, there's no time. And so you are in your own visualization able to heal her, even if you can't in your personal relationship.
And I tried to paint it. What came out was a rose, blooming, flowering.
But it is a practice.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I guess it's my turn.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Simone, for opening up that way. I really resonate with what you shared in so many ways, and you're in the right place. Madeleine is such an amazing channel of ancient wisdom, and she just holds so much of a compassionate heart and understanding from her life experience. So I'm so grateful to have gotten to come on and receive your visualization, Madeleine, because I've done a lot of work with my mother-daughter relationship, and I have a unique blessing that with all of the struggles between myself and my mother, we also are like best friends. And I've been able to, for so many years, I did so much of my own healing work and I wanted my mom to do it with me. And at some point I had to realize that my mom is doing her healing work in the way that she does it. She will never do it the way that I do it. And to really allow that had been huge. But today, when you started your visualization, Madeleine, what I wanted to share was this beautiful epiphany where I actually saw my mom as that fully expressed in her glory self. And I was able to see that she is that, even with the veils of all of the scars of her life. And because I saw that, I was able to see myself that way more as well. Like, even with all of the ways that life shuts us down, we still are the embodiment of that amazing being that we came here to be. And so that was what I felt like I really wanted to share with the collective. Thank you so much for allowing me to have that beautiful vision.
Thanks, Kara. Sandra?
I was literally unable to talk at the time, so thank you, Kira. Simone, thank you for your vulnerability, because it again really helps each and every one of us to step into the energy of whatever we need to express here as well. And whoops, I removed myself. I tried to lower my hand. Let me put myself back over here. I uh, I really could feel the energy of myself being here, my daughter and my as yet unborn grandson. And then on the other side, my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and so forth down that lineage. And Lithuanian roots, English, like the UK kind of background. So really that oppression, right? And really recognizing in this moment, I have not, I'll be honest, I have not done a ton of mother-daughter work. And my mom had a pretty miserable childhood because of how old her parents were and how she was basically told she was an unwanted child. And that probably came all the way down as well. And then she married my dad, who was a womanizer, and then she married a man who completely oppressed her. I'm just really stepping into the energy of how I am choosing to live for them as well as myself. So thank you for this today.
Oh. My heart really goes out to all of you because I know that feeling.
Oh, okay. Let me continue with my role here. Um, Madeline, you are just so precious, and I am so glad. And we are so very, very fortunate that you have developed such a beautiful relationship with Kira. And because of that, it brought you, like I said, full circle back around to us being in the same circle together. And because of that, the healing that's begun for myself and possibly the continuation and the healing that is begun for others is just really, really magical. And I so appreciate that you are here. And we would love for you to share what you would like to offer the group. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift. Oh, give me a moment here. I'm trying to grab it all here. Share it in the chat here. So you know what you gave. Did I get it out there? I did. There you go. It's to awaken your inner goddess.
Yes, and basically, I had made a flyer, which is not here because I'm very bad on some of these things. I made a flyer about that and realizing that it is when we're able to do this and move through really getting to see our essential self and connect with this ancient alphabet, which I have written a book about, is looking at the way, because it's an ideographic as well as a numeric alphabet, each card in the major arcana, which is for each letter of the alphabet, has to do with a different state. And when I was writing my book, I found that each card, I would be living that card while I was creating the illustration for it. And so I decided I wanted to do, just to introduce people to it. And so what I'm offering is on the 17th of this month of September, I'm going to be doing a free class, or what did I write down? I hate the word class, so I called it something else that I thought was a better word. A free inner adventure where we would look at a little deeper into where, the history of the alphabet, and also into really getting into the experience of the letter, what the letters feel like in us, and not all of the letters at once, but I was thinking I would do it with one or two letters, and then you'd have a sense of what the power of that connection can be for you, because it really is a way to reclaim your essential power as a creative woman. And we all are creative women. It doesn't mean you have to be doing a painting or whatever. We're creating our lives, or we wouldn't even be in this group. And so the class, so the inner adventure is going to be on the 17th of September, and it's going to start at 5:30 in the evening on it's Wednesday is the 17th, and go till 7. So 6:37. I figured an hour and a half would be a good amount of time. Hopefully, even if you're on the East Coast or somewhere else in the world, it would be a convenient time for people.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there any last things that you would like to express to the group to help us round out the experience that we had with you? Just because some of us were or are in a fair, quite the state, possibly, myself included. So if there's anything that you'd like to share with just kind of how to kind of go through the next couple of hours or through the rest of the evening and what have you, if you don't mind.
I think that what I've learned to do is that we cannot always heal it in person. Sometimes we can. I mean, when I did this, one of the women found that it helped her heal her relationship with her daughter. Because she was at the time, I was in my 50s and she was in her 70s and was having had a troubled relationship with her daughter, who was closer probably in age to me. And she felt that having gone through the process, she was able to utilize what she was gaining in healing that relationship. And I think that each person has their own way of healing and working through things. I think sometimes there's a couple of pieces of advice I have. One is that I learned that some people, and I was told by my daughter this, that a lot of her contemporaries, they couldn't go to their mother and say, you hurt me this way or this way or this way, because their mothers would shut them down and make them feel bad because they would feel their own shame, the mother would. And so I say, if you're trying to heal something with your daughter or a son, that it's important to realize that this is their reality. It may not be yours, and that the greatest thing you can do for them is to not deny their reality. And so I know that my daughter or my son will sometimes say I did something or I said something that really hurt them. And I've had to control myself and say, I'm so sorry if I did that. I don't remember. Had I known what I know now, I never would have done that. And that's a much more healing way to deal, because you're acknowledging their reality and asking forgiveness for what they believe happened, because you don't have, we each see our own reality. And in a sense, on some level, we can apply that backwards towards our mothers and recognize, and also, frankly, part of my daily water prayers. I pray with water every morning. And I drink the water. I say, blessed by the light of the rising sun, and may this, through me, this holy water bring healing to all my ancestors and our relations and descendants, those born and those yet to be. And that really, and I combine it, I sing it and I combine it with movement, because when you sing and you move, you're literally moving the energy out from within you into the universe and into the timelessness of the Holy One. I don't know if hopefully that's something helpful for people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Everybody, this has just been a beautiful experience. We are literally stacking and stacking and stacking, and each of these pieces are moving us in directions that we really can't even begin to understand at this time. And it's in these small steps that the magic really does unfold. And Madeleine, truly blessed to have you here today. Really appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sandra. It's such an honor.
Thank you. Everybody, this, like I just said, beautiful experience. The circle remains open as we've opened it yesterday morning, and really stepping into the energy of uh, drinking lots of water, taking rest, going for a walk outside, or if you can't get outside, looking outside. Like I'm inundated with smoke outside, so walking outside is the thing that I will be, visualizing myself doing versus. And in that case, I can visualize wherever I want to be versus walking around my concrete block, which is beautiful. So take a few moments to drink of water, to reflect, and really feel into the energy of how you want to move forward. What do you want to feel? Because I think really what that comes down to, and as Alan pointed out, is like really start to feel what you want to feel. Recognize what you want to feel and move forward from there. We will see each and every one of you tomorrow, ideally. If not, the replays will be available. In fact, yesterday's replays are already available. And please do take advantage of the beautiful offerings that each of these guest speakers, wisdom keepers, and storytellers have for each and every one of you. You're blessed. Have a wonderful evening. Take care, everybody.